Have you ever felt like you're too much for this world? Too loud. Too intense. Too fast. People tell you to slow down. To tone it down. To wait your turn. But deep inside, something burns. A fire that refuses to be ignored. That is Aries energy. Here's the truth most people don't talk about. The very traits you've been criticized for are the same ones that make you unstoppable. Aries isn't just bold. They're built for greatness. And not in a shallow, motivational quote kind of way. I'm talking deep-rooted psychology, emotional strength, and fearless vision. This video will uncover the real reasons why Aries is destined to rise. Not just in career or money, but in life. In legacy. In becoming a force the world can't forget. So if you're an Aries, know an Aries, or just want to understand the fire within, stay with me. You'll see Aries like you've never seen before. And maybe you'll see yourself more clearly too. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs this, and hit that subscribe button if you believe in deep, soul-level growth. Let's begin. There's something most people never see in Aries. They notice the confidence. The energy. The quick moves, the loud presence, the take-charge attitude. But beneath all of that, there's pain. There's a story. You see, Aries doesn't just wake up strong. They become strong because life gave them no other choice. Behind their bold steps is a past where they were doubted, ignored, underestimated. Maybe it was that parent who only noticed them when they achieved something. Maybe it was the teacher who said, "You're not leadership material." Or that breakup that shattered their world and forced them to rebuild alone. And instead of crumbling, they fought. They turned pain into power. Every scar became a map. Every setback, a step forward. That's what makes Aries special. Not just their fire, but how they learn to wield it. They don't walk through life trying to be impressive. They walk through life trying to prove to themselves that they are enough. And that internal battle? It becomes their engine. It fuels their hustle. It's why they keep pushing when others stop. But let's pause for a moment. If you're an Aries, or even if you just carry that kind of spirit, have you noticed how restless you can feel when things slow down? That itch in your chest when you're not chasing something? That's not just ambition. That's a core emotional need. A need to become more. Not because you're not already enough, but because your soul knows it's capable of more. And this is where we talk about impulse. Most people think impulse is dangerous. And yes, it can be. But for Aries, it's more than just reacting quickly. It's instinct. It's a voice that says, "Go now." When the opportunity shows up, Aries doesn't wait for everyone to agree. They move. They leap. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But the magic is in the movement. Because even when it doesn't go as planned, Aries grows. They learn faster by doing. By falling. By fixing. Think about it. How many dreams die while people are waiting for the perfect moment? Aries doesn't wait. They act. And that action? It unlocks paths most never find. Sure, they'll make mistakes. Plenty. But they'll also be the first to start something that changes their life. And sometimes that something is rebellion. Now, don't confuse this with teenage drama. Rebellion in Aries is spiritual. It's soul deep. They don't break rules just to break them. They break them when those rules don't match their truth. They feel it in their gut when something isn't right. This can show up early in life. The kid who doesn't want to follow a family tradition. The teen who questions the system. The adult who walks away from a stable job to chase a vision no one else sees. That rebellion? It's not destruction. It's creation. Because Aries doesn't follow. They carve. They carve out space for themselves in a world that wasn't built for their fire. And when they do, others follow. Because people feel authenticity. They feel that raw, unapologetic energy, and it gives them permission to question their own lives. If you've ever felt like you're living a script someone else wrote for you, you already understand Aries energy. It's the voice that says, write your own. And all of this, the pain, the impulse, the rebellion, it leads to something powerful. A deep, sacred relationship with fear. Here's the truth, Aries feels fear just like everyone else. They're not immune to doubt or anxiety. But they handle fear differently. They don't run from it. They run with it. Fear becomes a tool. A compass. It tells them, this matters. This is real. And instead of freezing, they lean in. They feel the fear and still show up. Still speak up. Still launch the project. Still walk into the unknown. That's bravery. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move anyway. So, when you see Aries being bold, understand, it's not always easy. It's often terrifying. But they've trained themselves to act even when the fear is loud. That's why they're admired. That's why they rise. And maybe that's why you're still here. Because something inside you resonates with that fire. And maybe it's time to ask yourself, what fear have you been listening to? What rebellion are you holding back? What pain are you still carrying that could become your power, if you let it? Take a deep breath. Because we're just getting started. There's something else that makes Aries stand out. It's not just how fast they move or how loudly they fight. It's the way they carry their loneliness. Not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from walking a path no one else understands. Aries often feels like no one truly gets them. Their drive, their fire. Their need to keep moving forward, it sets them apart. And sometimes that difference feels like distance. You might see them surrounded by people, leading a team, lighting up a room. But deep down, there's a silence they carry. A quiet awareness that their journey is theirs alone. But here's the beauty in that solitude. Aries turns it into strength. Instead of depending on approval, they build their own voice. Instead of waiting to be chosen, they choose themselves. They become their own anchor, their own source of clarity. And in doing so, they teach the rest of us something powerful. That peace isn't found in being understood by others. It's found in understanding yourself. And this inner clarity feeds something else. Authenticity. Aries doesn't fake it. They don't shrink to fit in. They don't play roles just to make others comfortable. Even when their truth is loud, messy, or unpopular. They still live it. That's why people either love them or feel threatened by them. Because authenticity is a mirror. And not everyone's ready to look. But Aries doesn't live for applause. They live for alignment. And when they walk into a room, you feel it. That raw presence. That unapologetic energy. They might not say much. But their energy says everything. I know who I am. I'm not here to play small. And here's what's amazing. When Aries lives that way, they give permission to others. Permission to be bold. To say no. To stop performing. They don't do it to inspire. They do it because they have to. But in doing so, they spark something real in everyone around them. Now let's talk about emotional honesty. Aries doesn't sugarcoat. When they love, it's loud. When they're angry, you'll know. When they're hurt, they won't hide it behind a smile. Their emotions come through like fire, immediate, visible, powerful. Some people see that as too much. But the truth is, it's brave. In a world where so many people mask their feelings, Aries chooses honesty. They'd rather say the hard thing than pretend everything's fine. They'd rather cry openly than suppress what's real. because to them, feeling is living. And yes, that kind of honesty can lead to conflict. But it also leads to real connection. Because people trust what's raw. They may not always agree with Aries, but they respect the truth in them. And here's the personal growth lesson in that. We spend so much time trying to manage how we're perceived. We filter our feelings. We smile when we want to scream. But Aries? They remind us that there is strength in showing up as we are. Even when it's not polished. Even when it's vulnerable. Even when it's hard. And that's how healing begins. Not by hiding our truth, but by living it. But let's be real, there's a shadow to all this drive. Sometimes, that fire inside Aries isn't coming from a pure place. Sometimes, it's restlessness. Sometimes, it's a fear of standing still. They keep moving not because they want something, but because they're trying to outrun a feeling. And this is where self-awareness matters. Because when Aries learns to sit with that discomfort instead of running from it, they grow in ways no one expects. They stop chasing the next thing just to feel alive. And instead, they begin to build something deeper. Something lasting. This is the shift from ambition to alignment. From urgency to purpose. And once that shift happens, Aries becomes unstoppable in a whole new way. Not just busy, but intentional. Not just bold, but wise. Imagine the power of that. All that energy, all that courage, all that motion, channel, not just success, but meaning. And if you've ever felt like you were moving too fast, chasing too hard, burning too much, maybe it's time to ask, what am I really running from? What would happen if I stopped for a moment and actually listened to myself? Because sometimes, the biggest breakthrough isn't a new goal. It's a new level of peace. And just when you think Aries can't surprise you anymore, we reach the parts of their story that go even deeper. In the next segment, we'll explore how Aries turns destruction into rebirth, how they redefine success by stepping into purpose, and why the final 3 truths about Aries might be the most powerful, or the most controversial. You don't want to miss what comes next. There's something Aries does that many people overlook. They don't just start things, they initiate them. There's a difference. Starting something is easy. Anyone can do it when the conditions are right. When the timing is perfect. The plan is clear, and support is waiting. But initiating, that's different. Initiating means stepping into the unknown. It means saying yes before you know how. It's walking into a room where nothing exists yet. And deciding you'll build something from scratch. This is where Aries thrives. They don't wait for approval. They don't sit back hoping someone else will take the first step. They are the first step. Whether it's launching a business, starting a movement, beginning a conversation that others avoid. They carry that brave, raw energy of beginning. You might see this in your own life. That friend who always speaks first when the silence is uncomfortable. That colleague who volunteers for a project no one understands yet. Or maybe it's you, feeling that deep pull to try something new. Even if you have no clue where it'll lead. That's initiation. And that's Aries. Now, why does this matter for growth? Because nothing in life changes until someone dares to begin. Until someone takes that first imperfect, unpolished, uncertain action. Aries reminds us that we don't need to have it all figured out. We just need to move. The clarity comes later. The strength grows with each step. The confidence builds after we leap, not before. This instinct to create, to push forward, to breathe life into ideas others only dream about. It's powerful. And when paired with one of Aries' most underrated traits, it becomes magnetic. Charisma. Not the shallow kind. Not the smile for the crowd version. But the kind of presence that fills a space. That quiet confidence that makes people stop and feel something, even if they don't know why. Aries doesn't try to be liked. They don't perform for attention. They just are. And that authenticity, that energy of being fully themselves, it draws people in. Think about the people you trust most. The ones who speak with certainty. Who don't second-guess their words. Who look you in the eyes and mean what they say. That's charisma. It's not always loud, but it's always real. Aries builds powerful connections this way. They don't network, they connect. They don't manipulate, they influence through presence. And that presence? It opens doors. It earns loyalty. It inspires movement. In leadership, this is gold. People follow Aries not just because of their ideas, but because of their energy. That feeling of, if they're leading, I want to be part of it. And when that charisma combines with Aries' drive to build their own path, you get the spirit of an entrepreneur. They don't like to wait around for opportunities. They create them. If a system doesn't support their vision, they build a new one. If a company doesn't align with their values, they start their own. If there's a gap in the market, they don't ask why, it's there for them. And this doesn't just apply to business. It applies to how they live. Their relationships. Their goals. Their healing. They are fiercely independent, not because they don't need people, but because they trust their own instincts. Aries understands that life rewards the brave. Not just the brave who take risks, but the brave who take responsibility. They own their results. They own their failures. And they get back up, again and again. Not to prove something to the world, but to prove something to themselves. So if you've ever felt like you were meant to do things your way, if the rules never quite fit, if you've always felt a little different, a little louder, a little more driven than those around you, that's not a flaw. That's your edge. Your fire. Your calling to lead. But let's not sugarcoat it. Entrepreneurship, leadership, bold living, it's not all wins and milestones. It's filled with mistakes. With messy trials. With painful failures that leave you questioning everything. And here's where Aries reveals one of their deepest strengths. Their ability to adapt to failure. When something falls apart, Aries doesn't collapse. They analyze. They ask the hard questions. What went wrong? What did I miss? What can I learn? They don't hide from failure. They use it. As fuel. As information. As motivation. Most people fear failure like it's the end. Aries knows it's just part of the process. And they don't take it personally. Because to them, failure isn't a reflection of their worth. It's a reflection of their growth. Think of any great innovator, artist, or trailblazer. They failed. They stumbled. They fell hard, sometimes publicly. But they got back up. Wiser. Sharper. Hungrier. That's the Aries model. Fall, learn, rise stronger. And it's not easy. It takes humility to admit what didn't work. It takes courage to keep going when nothing makes sense. But Aries does it. Not once. Not twice. Again and again. Because deep down, they believe in what they're building. They trust that every failure is leading them somewhere better. And that mindset? It's rare. It's powerful. It's the foundation for a kind of success that lasts. So if you're someone who's fallen recently, if something you cared about didn't work out, don't shrink. Don't hide. Do what Aries would do. Face it. Learn from it. Use it. And then, rise. Because we're not done yet. In the next part of this journey, we're going even deeper. Into the kind of ambition that never sleeps. The silent force that pushes Aries to always be first. And a truth about influence that may just change how you see power forever. You won't want to miss what's coming next. There's a reason Aries rarely stays still for long. They're not just driven, they're restless. Not in a chaotic way, but in a way that refuses to settle. That hunger you feel when you know you were made for more? That's Aries energy. They don't want average. They don't aim for good enough. There's a fire in their chest that says, you can go further. You can be more. And that ambition doesn't come from comparison. It comes from vision. Aries sees things before they exist. They imagine what could be, not what is. And that vision keeps them moving. Keeps them growing. Keeps them uncomfortable, because comfort feels like standing still. But this kind of ambition can feel heavy. It can look like never being satisfied. Like always chasing, always building, always striving. And yes, it can be exhausting. That's why self-awareness is key. Aries has to learn when their ambition is fueling growth. And when it's trying to fill a void. Because true ambition isn't about proving your worth. It's about honoring your potential. And that shift changes everything. When Aries roots their ambition in purpose instead of pressure. They don't just succeed. They elevate. They build things that last. Things that matter. Things that serve more than just themselves. And part of that comes from something deeply instinctive. Their desire to lead. Not just in title or position. But in spirit. Aries wants to be first. Not for the applause, but for the experience. They want to be where no one's been. To explore new territory. To test limits and blaze trails. This might show up in a classroom, where they're the first to raise their hand. Or in a business, where they launch an idea no one else dared to try. Or in life, when they make a bold move everyone else questions. They're pioneers. They don't follow trends, they start them. They don't wait for validation, they act on instinct. And because of this, they often find opportunities that others miss. But being first isn't always easy. It's lonely. There's no map. No clear path. Just faith, vision, and courage. And Aries has that in abundance. Even when they're afraid, they go first. Even when they fail, they try again. Because deep down, they believe it's better to try and stumble than to watch from the sidelines. And that kind of boldness? It's magnetic. People feel it. They want to be around it. They want to follow it. This is where Aries' ability to influence shines. Not through control or manipulation, but through inspiration. Aries doesn't ask others to believe in them. They believe in themselves so deeply, others can't help but follow. They bring energy to a room. Momentum to a team. Conviction to a mission. And that's rare. In a world where many speak but few move, Aries moves first. And movement creates trust. It creates gravity. It makes people feel safe, because someone is willing to take the lead. But this isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. Aries isn't afraid to say, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm going anyway. That honesty builds connection. And that connection becomes power. Whether it's in friendships, business, love, or community. Aries influences by showing up fully. Not just with confidence. But with commitment. With consistency. With courage. And if you've ever found yourself in a room full of indecision, wishing someone would just do something, maybe you were meant to be the one to act. To lead. To light the way. Because leadership isn't a position. It's a choice. A decision to care enough to act. And when Aries combines that influence with optimism, something magical happens. Because here's the thing. Aries believes. Even when it's hard. Even when the world feels heavy. They still see possibilities. They still hold on to hope. Not blind hope, but resilient hope. Hope that fights back. Hope that gets up after a fall. They look at a mess and see potential. They look at a setback and see the lesson. They look at a closed door and think, I'll build another one. That kind of optimism isn't naive. It's earned. It's forged through fire, failure, and faith. It's what gives Aries the ability to keep going when others quit. To rise even when nothing makes sense. And it's contagious. Spend enough time around an Aries, and you'll start to believe in yourself more. You'll start to feel braver. Stronger. More alive. Because their optimism doesn't just live in their words. It lives in their choices. In how they wake up every day and try again. In how they bet on themselves, even when no one else does. In how they carry others with them. Not because they have to, but because they can. And if that's not power, what is? So maybe that's the real lesson here. That greatness isn't found in titles or outcomes. It's found in how we move. How we lead. How we rise. And Aries rises again and again. Not because life is easy, but because they are unbreakable. And yet, we're not done. Because the final 3 truths about Aries reveal something even deeper. Something more intimate. More raw. And maybe even a little controversial. What really drives Aries when no one's watching? What are they secretly chasing beneath all that strength? Stay with me. You're about to see Aries in a way you never have before. Aries has always been drawn to beauty. But not just surface beauty. There's something deeper. They're pulled toward luxury, toward the kind of life that feels bold. Expansive, alive. It's not about showing off. It's not about status. It's about expression. For Aries, luxury is a symbol. A reflection of effort, growth, courage. A reward for the battles they've fought. The leaps they've taken, the pain they've turned into purpose. When they dream of the penthouse, the world trip, the designer suit. They're not chasing things. They're chasing proof. Proof that they made it through. Proof that their risks weren't in vain. Proof that they have the right to celebrate the life they built with their bare hands. This desire can be misunderstood. People might call them materialistic, impatient, indulgent. But what they don't see is the emotion behind it. The fire that kept Aries moving through the dark. The long nights. The self-doubt. The silence. Luxury, to Aries, is a whisper that says, you've earned this. It's not about impressing others. It's about creating a life that feels like a match for their inner world. Intense, vibrant, unapologetically full. And there's one more piece to this story. A trait that explains almost everything. The thing that holds it all together. Emotional resilience. This is the true core of Aries. The quiet strength behind the fire. Because life doesn't always reward boldness. Sometimes, it hits hard. People leave. Plans fall apart. The world doesn't always catch you when you leap. But Aries keeps leaping anyway. Not because they don't get hurt. But because they know how to heal. They get back up. They try again. They feel the fear. They cry the tears. But they never stay down for long. They've trained themselves to move forward, even when their heart is still aching. Even when the door slammed shut. Even when they feel like the world forgot them. That's not just courage. That's resilience. And that kind of strength, it's invisible. You don't always see it on the surface. You won't find it in the highlight reel. But it's what makes Aries unstoppable. They don't wait for the storm to pass. They dance in the middle of it. They create in the chaos. They grow through the wreckage. They rebuild when no one's watching. So if you're still standing after everything life has thrown at you. If you've kept believing in your path, even when it got hard. If you've walked alone, started from nothing, or risen from your own ashes. You're already living like an Aries. And that is something worth honoring. Let's pause here. Let all of this sink in for a moment. Because we've gone through a lot. Not just traits or signs or labels. But emotions. Wounds. Dreams. The truth beneath the surface. Aries is more than bold. They are brave. They are builders. They are breakers of cycles, creators of new paths, and protectors of their vision. And maybe, so are you. Maybe, somewhere inside you, there's a fire that's been waiting to be seen. Maybe this video wasn't just about Aries. Maybe it was a mirror. So take what speaks to you. Let it stay with you. Let it move you. And if you felt seen, heard, or understood today, hit that subscribe button. Not because it helps the channel, but because it helps you keep growing with us. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been doubting their fire, share this with them. Sometimes, all it takes is a voice to remind us who we are. There's so much more I want to share with you. More about the other signs. More stories. More healing. More truth. So stay close. Come back. There's a whole journey ahead. And I promise, this is just the beginning.